With the release of the new Mario Kart game, I decided to try and cash in on the current hype. I mean, what I meant to say was contribute my part to the ongoing Mario Kart conversation. Although this video is taking so much time to make, I don't think that game will even be relevant anymore when this video eventually gets released. Now I threw a quick racetrack layout together off camera, which was fairly easy. The difficult part was trying to figure out a theme for the track. Before even trying to come up with an original idea myself though, I just grabbed Mario Kart, set the course selection to random, and hoped that I would find inspiration that way. The first few tracks the game threw at me were not exactly what I was looking for.
Oh god. I know I've just finished a huge cyberpunk city, but what if I just start another, right?
And the Mario Kart NPCs were as friendly as ever.
Well, that was just unnecessary.
After successfully completing a few tracks though, I finally found what I was looking for. This is Wild Woods, a racetrack built entirely inside of a huge tree. I'm not sure why exactly this track inspired me as much as it did, but all the planning I did afterwards was entirely based on this. Speaking of planning, this is what I have in mind for this build. The track is supposed to start off on this long straightaway with some obstacles, then continue on a big log, go over a bridge, turn around an oversized mushroom, and then go through this big pond. Seems doable in theory, let's go! Well okay, that's great. Planning this video took so long, Bloxburg is a completely different game now. That's good to know. After getting to know the shiny new UI of Bloxburg, that for some reason didn't carry over to the build mode menu, I started working on the racetrack, starting with the giant log you race on top of. This entire process was however made a little difficult by me not having a single clue what I was even doing. I'll be honest, this doesn't even look remotely close to what a tree trunk looks like. I feel like this will probably be way more complicated than I initially expected. That was until I started angling the basic shapes. Oh, hold on, now I actually may be onto something. Figuring out that technique gave me a huge confidence boost, at least until I stepped back and took a look at what could only be described as, well, frankly undescribable. What even is that? Okay, so I have to admit this doesn't look remotely as good as I hoped it would. Maybe it'll look better when we paint and texture it. Nah, it doesn't look like a tree trunk at all. This is going to be so much more painful than I was wishing for. Despite the tree trunk's, let's say, unconvincing appearance, I decided to just keep it like it is for a bit to see if it would maybe grow on me. Which I'm glad to say it sort of has. Using basic shapes, I filled in the log sides, finishing it for now. I then moved on to adding the first kind of obstacle to the racetrack, a huge mushroom in the middle of the track. At that point I also learned that you can make these mushrooms ridiculously huge for some reason. And oh, damn! Okay, well this mushroom can get quite a bit bigger than I expected. I then placed the mushrooms on top of a small hill to make it look a tiny bit more believable. Moving on, I detailed both the sidelines of the racetrack as well as the tree trunk by building tiny huts. These huts are not that detailed because they really don't have to be when you're racing past them at 60 miles per hour. I then finished the area by putting lots of plants next to the track. Moving on, I started work on some big arrow signs to help the racers not get lost on the track. Right after finishing those signs, the game however decided that this video was going way too well and it just completely broke for reasons I still don't really understand. Oh man. How did I even manage to do this? After restarting the game, it thankfully magically decided to work again, so I celebrated by building a huge mushroom, immediately running into other problems. Hold on, that's new. For some reason if I place something on top of this roof, it doesn't conform to it. There's like usually it would have like the same angle, but not anymore it seems. That's actually really unfortunate. Now I can't actually place like the white spots on this mushroom. I tried adding spots to the mushroom by using a spotted texture and, well, okay, never mind. That's not exactly what I was looking for. Okay, that's even worse. Okay, let's not do that. The rest of this building session went well, however. I mostly did some simple terrain, another small hut, and then just a ton of plants. I then started working on the section of the track that runs through the fallen log. Well, looks like even when building a racetrack, I can't escape doing an interior. But I at least have a solid vision of what this place could look like. And that vision is basically that I want to create sort of a market hall, along with a start and finish line and a small spectator stand. To create the market, I just placed down lots of these pre-made market stands, and for the spectator stands I just used stairs. While that sounds, and honestly was pretty simple, the fact that the racetrack runs diagonally through this build made all of this way more difficult than it had to be. The layout itself is honestly awful as well, as I even noticed when building this place. Now, apart from the fact that this is objectively an awful place to watch a race, because you are indoor and literally cannot see any other part of the track. I've noticed another small design flaw with this base, which is that, well, you can't really like leave, because all of this is locked off, so you don't get run over, obviously. But if you have to take a toilet break, well, I hope for you that you don't feel any shame, because the only option you really got is like, well, the Amazon warehouse style, if you get what I mean. Anyways. To finish this part of the track, I detailed the market stalls in a pretty basic manner. I then added in the actual finish line and lots of lights, as it was really dark in the market hall. I finally used arches to create a curved ceiling, which is pretty fitting as we are still inside of a log. Now that the log is finally finished, I moved on to part of the track that runs between the giant mushroom and the finish line, which is supposed to be a swampy area. I started off by replacing the downhill ramp with a jump, as that sounded a bit more exciting, and then followed by adding the water, the surrounding landscape and a few small houses. Hold on, this might actually turn out really cute. However, I feel like if you race down here, you could totally crash into these buildings. Especially because the track is already pretty narrow. If you have multiple people side by side, this will totally create a disaster. But I am a fan of chaos. Since I liked that argument, I decided to keep the buildings and went on to detail them a little. Now they are pretty much my favorite part of this track. Honestly, this is really cute. I kind of want to do a standalone video on something like this now. But I'm getting carried away. We're supposed to build a racetrack. And racetrack building I did. I finished the swampy area by adding in lots of greenery, as well as these arrow signs I used all over the place. With all of the major sections of the racetrack being finished, I now just have to work on the filler spaces in between, that being mostly the area around the giant mushroom. I didn't do anything major here, all of the detailing I did was just placing down additional mushrooms, trees and shrubbery. The main goal honestly was just for these areas to blend in, so you can focus on the important stuff like, I don't know, the 3-story tall mushroom you're driving under. Now that these filler spaces are also finally finished though, we can finally take a drive around the track. Now what I'm worried about is that the track is maybe a little too short. This is the first section of course, running through the village. Turning right here onto this log, which is still looking a little weird, but we don't talk about that anymore. And after turning this way, we of course arrive at this huge mushroom, with this hairpin turn right under it. And then finally we jump into the swampy area, with these cute little village houses and of course more mushrooms, with the finish line being right here. I mean, honestly, yeah, the track is really short. Honestly, I don't mind it. This is genuinely pretty fun to race around. Now the only thing missing is actually having friends to race around here, but we don't do that around here. Now what I didn't consider during building is that I may have unintentionally added in some shortcuts, especially right here. But hold on, let's see if we can take a shortcut here. No, I immediately got stuck. Well, looks like my driving was so horrendous that the game just kicked me out. Honestly, a valid reaction. I do feel like we can actually take that shortcut though. Well, third time's the charm. And oh, yeah, we immediately made. Okay, so that is a shortcut you could theoretically make, with the risk of it ending your entire race, I guess. However, I feel like, oh, can we also just? That's also a shortcut we can make, I guess. So we can just, yeah. I forgot to put any barriers right there. Well anyways, that was interesting. For the incredible size of this project, it actually has not taken as much time as I thought it would. But yeah, that's pretty much all. If you want to have a more detailed look at all the builds, follow me on Instagram, I post all my builds there. I hope I'll see you during the next video. Thank you so much for watching and bye!